Welcome back to Horseshoe Theory, the only podcast whose hosts will live forever. Today we have Nathan Chang and Yuri Daijin. Nathan is a longevity maximalist and founder of the Longevity Biotech Fellowship, a non-profit community for people to build, join, or invest in revolutionary longevity biotechnology projects, as well as the founder of Vitalism, a moral philosophy to get humanity to fight as hard as possible against dying of old age. Yuri is also a longevity maximalist and a drug developer, currently working at Youth Biotherapeutics Incorporated, developing partial reprogramming gene therapies. In this episode, we talk about transhumanism, the ideologies behind transhumanism, the AI singularity, whether longevity will be available only to the rich, why Greg wants to kill everyone, and how to effectively mobilize everyone to bring about transhumanism. Put your red light therapy helmets on, take your supplements, and begin a 7-day fast. You're gonna make it out of Samsara with this one.
Are you like recording?
Transhumanism.
All right.
Specifically longevity, specifically living forever, specifically never dying, specifically you can't even die even if you want to. First, before we begin, can I offer you fellas a zin? Do you guys want a zin?
Is this your sponsor?
Yeah, 6 milligrams of nicotine. Zin sponsorship.
We got the Zin sponsorship.
Yeah,
we finally made it. We had 10K subs and got the Zin sponsorship.
I'm about to take a Zin right now. Is this good or bad for my longevity?
It's a good question.
It's 6 milligrams of nicotine, by the way.
Yeah, some people I know in the biohacking community are interested in nicotine and using like nicotine patches for as a nootropic at least. Obviously, smoking is not good for you, but I don't know.
Right. I mean, it's addictive, and I don't know.
Nicotine's a nootropic. It's good for my brain, so I can earn more capital, so I can at some point live forever with the money.
That's like the 4D chess move.
Yeah.
Right. I think I might have heard like Brian Johnson mention also nicotine or somebody.
Is he on the Zins?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Maybe we should begin by credentials. What are your guys' story with being immortalists?
Complete imposters.
I don't know.
Just walked off the street. Credentials. I don't know. I don't like the term, but like in terms of the background, I've been kind of in the longevity space for over a decade now. Initially just as an activist, trying to convince people that actually it's a good thing, to be healthy and not die. Surprisingly, like people need convincing. But in terms of I've also been in drug development long before that, and then transitioned into longevity drug development. So right now I'm less of an activist and more of a person developing longevity therapies, and but still always happy to talk about activism and why do people hold these odd beliefs that dying is a good thing. So I'm good.
Be healthy and not die. That's controversial.
I know.
Go ahead.
What were you in school for? You went to school for?
I went actually computer science. Like surprisingly, a lot of longevity people. There's a lot of transition from computer science or physics or some sort of like exact science, and then I think people look at biology in the hopes that those guys are going to figure things out, and then they're not doing a great job. Maybe it's our turn, and then we can go back to doing the things that we like computer science or physics or traveling to the stars.
Right.
So.
And when we talked, I remember you said that you were working on stuff that might eventually be able to reverse dementia or help with dementia.
Yeah. This is our primary focus right now.
Right.
Alzheimer's.
And then of course, once you get dementia sorted, then you can just improve the brain in general, right? That's the end goal.
That's the kind of strategy for drug development. You need some sort of disease that you have to show, safety and efficacy in, and then after you get on the market, you can then.
And this reminds me of kind of this idea of if someone's missing an arm, then you can't say, oh well, don't you want this guy to have his arm back? Right? And then you give him a robot arm and it's even more powerful than the normal arm. And then all of a sudden, you need this very powerful robot arm to exist. That becomes the new status quo.
Yeah.
But we'll go back to that. You, go.
Okay, I'm
Nathan.
So I'm Nathan. My background is actually in physics. Yeah, was in a PhD program for 2 years in physics, and then had a sudden existential crisis and realized that I was going to die, and everybody I love is going to die, so I had to do something about that problem, because it seems like a pretty important problem to work on. So then right now what I'm doing is I'm a co-founder and director of a nonprofit called the Longevity Biotech Fellowship. And basically what we do is we try to bring in people who want to work on this problem of aging. We look for people who are extremely talented all over the world, whatever background they are, and try and equip them with the sort of like, community and context to equip them, to basically tackle this problem of aging, usually through their careers or whatever.
Cool.
But yeah, also a co-founder of Vitalism, which is like a social political movement.
Vitalism.
Yeah.
We were talking about Vitalism.
Yeah.
This is an ideology podcast, so we're going to get into that probably.
So yeah, it's basically an ideology informed from the simple proposition that life is good and death is bad. And
life is good, death is bad. Axioms.
Yeah, and by extension, humanity should do, basically make fighting death and aging its number one priority. And then, also on the side, I'm also a co-founder of HealthSpan Capital. So it's an early stage venture capital firm. We invest in, longevity biotech companies. Okay. Yeah. I'm good. I'm pretty good right now. But thanks.
I love dosing the guests with nicotine, or at least attempting to. So you look young. You look very young. How old are you guys? How old?
Should we do a guess?
We should. I just want to make them as uncomfortable as possible, just to open up. You told me you're like 40, right?
44.
44. You look good for 44.
Thank you.
You can lie if you want. I'll allow you to lie.
12. No. Yeah, I'm 36.
36. Wow, Jesus.
Yeah, would have guessed younger.
Yeah, you look really
It's
really good for 36. Have you been longevity maxing yourself? I have to ask.
Well, I do look kind of like an 80-20. I'm not like Brian Johnsoning, let's say, but I do like use sunscreen, right? And try to eat healthy, try to exercise, that kind of stuff. But my main focus is not biohacking. I wouldn't call myself a biohacker or anything like that.
Okay.
So interested in longevity, but purely from a technological standpoint, not necessarily like really strict routines and...
Yeah.
Because I find it interesting, like Brian Johnson complaining about his social life sucking because he's so dedicated to it that he can't date.
Yeah, I don't.
He can't find anyone who loves him.
I don't know if we should get into this right now, but I'm sure you guys, like, how quick into talking about longevity is someone to bring up Brian fucking Johnson?
Well, the past couple of years, 5 seconds.
Yeah, like 5 seconds, right?
Yeah,
so do you guys feel like a sort of, do you feel like connected to that guy? Do you feel related to that guy? Do you feel like he represents what you're doing or what you're trying to do at all?
I think it was a good thing for the movement, at least from a visibility standpoint, because like he promotes the ideas that we stand for, at least some ideas that we stand for, like basically death is bad and life is good, don't die, all those things. Yeah, I think that's a net positive for the movement.
Okay.
And
I think ideologically very similar. When it comes to like, the practical aspects of what to do about aging, maybe we have different views, but that's not to say that they're wrong or anything. It's just like a different strategy. So and then there's the whole like actually biohacking and doing like health optimization stuff. He's kind of like training as an Olympian, like a rejuvenation Olympian, and that's cool. Like that's his own thing. But for most people, I think they don't want to go that far. Let's say. Yeah. But it's still cool.
Okay, I'm going to try to go more than 5 minutes before I try to create inter-longevity infighting. We can just say broadly agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people will say about Brian Johnson that it looks like he lives kind of like a very insular, isolated, sad life. Because he can't go outside because the air quality's bad.
I understand that, but at the same time, I think, like you said, like an Olympian, right? Where it's not I don't think he tries to prescribe his lifestyle to other people. I think he sees himself as an experiment.
Yeah.
So which I respect that, being like, this is my own thing. I don't think everyone should do this, but I'm just gonna like, be as dedicated as I can for my own interest.
Longevity and Brogan has a video on like looks maxing. We were talking about that earlier. Super relevant right now in modern day. Like, how have you guys always been into this longevity stuff? Oh, you had your existential crisis in university. When did you get into it?
Yeah, no, I wasn't. Yeah, I think, but like 12 years ago is when I even this got on my radar that there is a thing like longevity and trying not to die and fighting death and aging. Before that, this is as it is for most people. They're just like not even registering that there is something like they think aging is completely normal. And
okay, so I'm a death fan. I'm a big fan of death.
Tell us more.
Okay, I'm gonna leave now.
Why is life good and death bad? Huh? Why should I like life?
Why are you still alive if you're death?
I ask myself that question frequently. Why haven't you guys killed yourselves yet?
We're enjoying living.
Yeah, you guys like life?
Yeah.
You guys wake up and you're like, I'm so excited to be alive and I want to keep doing this forever?
Well, for as long as we want.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so much to explore, and like, I find it just so strange that some people would be like, I don't want to live forever because like I might get bored. I'm afraid of getting bored. Whereas I feel like there's just like so much experience, and the universe is just so like mysterious, and there's just so much to learn and understand and discover that I just can't imagine like ever getting bored.
Are you familiar? There's a philosophical strain of thought, antinatalism. Basically, and let me steel man this case for you guys. It's just like there's more pain in the average human experience than pleasure, and so we should have never been born, basically. And this is like a counter to the immortalists, to the longevity people.
Well, you can't, like, why are you speaking for everybody? If that's true for yourself, just kill yourself.
Right.
But like, you can't say, let's extinguish all life on Earth.
Let's make that a quote, just kill yourself.
And that's the thing with like ever getting bored of living. Like, it should be your choice. Right now we have this imposed on us that we get to age and die by a certain time. And really all we're working on is not to have that imposition, just have an option. Like if you get sick of this life, there's a door.
Right.
But until you do, you want to be healthy and enjoying your life as much as possible.
You're a life fan.
I'm a life fan. Yeah. When did you guys have your crisis? Was it early 20s? Was it later on?
Yeah. How old were you when you were doing your PhD?
So I was 22, I guess, around that time.
You saw your first wrinkle and you're like, no, I gotta go back.
And then you wrinkle right now.
No, I don't know how far we want to go back on this, but like I was raised in like a fundamentalist Christian sort of household, and it wasn't
like
until
Brian
I was a bit older, that I, basically woke up and it's just like, this is all bullshit. And of course, if you're raised Christian, all these existential questions are answered for you.
Yeah,
there's a book and everything's cool, right? And you're gonna go to heaven and everyone's gonna be there. It's a great party. There's gonna be tons of angels and stuff. But then when that's like when you wake up and you realize, okay, this is probably not true, and this is not the case, then it's like a extremely sort of like unmooring sort of experience. Like it just feels like reality is just like ripped apart. And then in that like kind of like coasting sort of like, I don't know, limbo phase, I just kind of like just continued. And then it wasn't until I was a little bit older in the middle of my PhD then where it's just like, oh my god, like no, this is a big deal, because like if you're just gonna die and there's nothing afterwards, it's just like oblivion, and everybody else that you love is also going to die. Maybe you should do something about it. Like it just seems like an obvious thing to do, and think about, but I think most of society and like culture is just designed to just help people cope, right? So like and just forget about it.
I'd agree with that.
So this strikes me as a kind of at odds with religion. And let me just
competitors.
Let me just
next sponsor.
What I have here is a special little guy called Mary, Mother of God.
Well, I think this is what bothers me about this kind of new Gen Z take of rebuilding religion as an antidote to all the meaninglessness we have. Because I just don't think you can't just rebuild. You can't just go your whole life not believing in God or not believing in the Bible, and then all of a sudden one day just decide to. Like, that's as much of a cope as anything. So, no, I agree. But then there's like, metamodernism. You heard this term? It's trying to like rebuild a belief structure that gives society purpose, where it's like you can't have religion again, and we need to rebuild an ideology. We need to move towards something that gives life kind of an inherent meaning, but build it from the ground up with the knowledge we have now instead of going back. I know a lot of philosophers, or like a lot of postmodernists or critical theory people, hate metamodernism. They think it's really cringy. But
are there any longevity people who are religious? Because it feels like that would be really hard to square.
Yeah, I think there are some, because I mean they're saying that they're just not in a rush to get to heaven, and they want to just enjoy good health for longer than they do right now.
Every religion has some kind of cope about death, and you could argue that's why it's there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's coping mechanism, and also motivational. It's good for governments to organize people and do things they wouldn't normally do. But you tell them that there's prize for you waiting after you die, so go do this thing I need you to do. But anyways,
but you're a man of God, aren't you?
Opium of the people.
Huh?
yeah, I pray.
Right. So how do you, and as a life fan,
Yeah.
how do you death? Death gives life meaning. You've heard this a bajillion times. What's the stock response?
Yeah, so that's something we do hear a lot.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I would just say, like, that's just not something that I can resonate with at all. I think life itself is what gives meaning to life.
What
Right?
the hell even is meaning? What is meaning? Life meaning to you? Like, what's your meaning? Like,
Accrue as much capital as possible so I can live forever.
okay.
I guess also, like your attachment, your enjoying of someone's time or someone's presence is predicated on the fact that it's not going to be there someday, right? So I think that's I
don't know.
There's a tension there, because
I mean, I'm enjoying right now, not because you guys are going to die at some point. It's just I'm enjoying, this momentary, emotions and conversation.
But wouldn't it be awesome if I was going to die at the end of this podcast?
You're like, okay, I'm going to make good on this.
You'd be really paying attention
like,
to everything going on. If I was going to take out a gun and kill myself.
I don't know.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
Do you want to live forever?
I'm open to the idea of living forever, but I also like getting older. I don't mind aging. Yeah, so I'm not scared of aging.
Yeah, this is something I'm thinking about. Is like, I think the idea of kind of as I age, like learning to become an older person and not get stuck who I was when I was like 21 or like a teenager. I have a mentor, 40 years old, and like, he's very kind of diligent about, okay, I'm at this phase of my life, so I'm going to be doing and thinking and saying different things than I was when I was like 20. But I suppose that doesn't preclude that, right? You can still get older and wiser, and you can still live forever.
You can still get wiser, but just keep good health, because like it's all about like a physical deterioration that sucks. It's not about like getting wiser. Nobody objects to with the years having more experience and getting wiser. It's just like 44, you realize that like looking back in 24, you get like, your body is deteriorating. You get gray hair, and you can't move as quickly, or like you can't bend down like as easily as you did, and all of these, and like all the diseases, you get like cancer. A lot of people, some of my friends, they got cancer and like in 40s or 50s, and it's no fun, right?
Yeah.
So it's not just like those are the aspects that we don't like when we talk about fighting aging. It's not the wisdom or everything else. And like if you guys enjoy getting wiser, then you should be enjoying living for as long as possible, it would seem, right?
And also included in like the body deteriorating is also the mind, right? So your brain,
not even talking
right,
about
your cognitive
yeah.
capacity slowly declines as well
Yeah.
once you get to a certain age. And that's scary. That's scary as fuck.
Yeah.
It is scary. It's scary enough for me to make a whole religion about it.
Oh, you got a new one?
Yeah, a new one.
Tell us.
Well, so it's so scary. I've invented a religion where I'm going to accrue as much capital as possible to live forever. And that's my meaning structure.
Okay.
Did you just invent it?
Yeah, I just came up with it now.
Okay. All right.
I think I've been listening to a lot of AI podcasts recently. The Ray Kurzweil guy, and talking about the simulating the human brain and then finding silver bullet cures, like just running like billions of simulations on different medications or different like the way things react to different neurotransmitters over and over again until you find like literal like something that cures depression and only cures depression. Like it doesn't make you tired, it doesn't make you numb, or something that cures schizophrenia without causing what are like the side effects of, you talk about this a lot, the side effects of antipsychotics.
Yeah,
like withdrawal. Lots. Yeah, like without the side effects, it's just like does one thing, right? So I don't know. Do you think necessarily that we're gonna move, like when we reach the point where there are procedures available to slow aging or like to basically cure dementia or something like that, there's going to be this huge financial barrier, or do you think it's going to become widely available really fast because of AI?
I think whenever a therapy is developed, it costs a lot initially, mostly to, first of all, recoup the costs of developing it and manufacturing. But as more and more people need it, as you like mass produce it, costs per unit just tend to go down as it's, with any therapy or invention. So with the longevity therapy, because there's like billions of people who are potential users, the price per unit is going to be really small. So like I don't think it'll be prohibitively expensive even in the beginning.
This is a real concern on the left right now in terms of like who has access to the life extending technologies. It tends to be richer people. And so the argument is like, well, these billionaires are going to live forever and you're going to die at 25 in the polluted slums. But you're basically saying like this will trickle down and everyone will have access to these technologies, all the technologies.
And with like if you're talking manufacturing therapies, like there's always other ways to, like, you don't have to do it in a particular country that makes it expensive. You can always do it somewhere else, like replicate it, and it's just essentially it's all about the knowledge. How do you what is the therapy that makes you slow aging down or cure dementia or something? So and if costs becomes somehow a barrier, there's other places in the world and other methods, like there's biohackers in their garages replicating really expensive therapies, because like the physical manufacturing of things like chemicals or even gene therapies these days is not expensive. So it wouldn't be like in like whatever altered carbon, only the rich have access to all the like therapies that keep them younger.
That happened with hepatitis B medication. I know I knew one of my professors got diagnosed with hep B, and then the government gave him like a $50,000 credit to get this medication because it was $50,000 at the time. And this was like 6 years ago. And now you can basically, if you catch hep B within the first year of having it, you can just go cure it. It's free in the Canadian healthcare system. It doesn't cost anything. Like I know someone who had hep B, like diagnosed, and then just doesn't have it anymore. Within 5 years of it being $50,000 to being free under socialized healthcare. So it's like it happens really fast. Same with like AIDS and HIV. It's basically you can live indefinitely with HIV. It doesn't kill you anymore. And that went from being like a very exclusive, expensive procedure to being commonplace. And the rate it happens exponentially goes up.
Yeah.
Do you think governments are going to want people living forever, though? Like, if I was the state and my populace was going to live forever, I might have some invested interest to not get them that technology.
Sure, if they agree basically to abandon pensions, like if they're healthy enough to be working and you as a state don't have to, keep feeding them for the remaining, 30 years of their lives, as right now with the pension system. And it's the problem for governments is that period is increasing. Like people retire at 65, and then instead of living until 75 as before, they now live to 85, and that's the problem for the government. But if you keep them healthy, and at 65 they're as healthy as a 45-year-old and can keep working and don't require sponsorship by the government, I think the government will be all for that.
So you're saying I can work forever instead of just 65 years? Yeah.
Well, I mean, if the flip side alternative of that is just dying at 85 and being decrepit at 65. I think, that's a better alternative, being healthy and working. So.
Yeah, and I think another thing to mention is just like you could have multiple careers, right? Like you could go back to school or pursue a more like passion-oriented, career instead of just like, slaving away, because like, the whole idea of retirement is because you're anticipating this time where you're no longer able to work because you're old, right? And because your body is falling apart, your cognitive capacity is declining. So if you could solve that problem, then people wouldn't have to like spend their entire youth and like burn their entire youth trying to acquire as much capital as possible for this like retirement nest egg that they have to save up for. They could just do things that are more interesting to them, maybe without having to like, index on like, saving as much money as possible, right? So
we're sort of in the worst of both worlds right now with how much it seems people our age need to work, and how pro young people are to throw away their 20s to just like fucking drop ship,
grind.
Yeah, exactly. Like have no social life. Like people who are never ever like not getting girlfriends, not getting huge social groups, not going out to bars, like not doing anything that's typical of being in your early 20s just to work, because the end goal of just having a house and having like a nest egg seems so much harder to reach than it was 40, 50 years ago. That's now necessary.
Well, if you do well enough in your 20s, but by 45, you can afford all this life extending technology, and then you can live out whatever you were going to do in your 20s and when you're 75.
Just reverse it.
Yeah. Are we going to have to control the birth rate? Because like everyone's living forever.
We're in like a birth crisis right now. There's like people are just not reproducing enough to even sustain the current level of the population. So no.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what Elon Musk has been like tweeting about as well. Is just like, yeah, there's like a demographic like fertility crisis going on.
What demographics?
Well, most I guess wealthier nations, right, have below replacement fertility rates.
Right.
So, yeah, most populations are declining unless they have like immigration.
Right.
To increase the population. So I think, by and large, people are already having fewer children. So it's not, I don't think longevity or extending people's lifespan would have, is going to be an issue there.
Okay. South Korea's isn't it like 0.68 kids per person? Like it's like it just drops dramatically. It drops more and more every year, faster than people think it's gonna drop.
So you're not Malthusians?
No.
Oh no. I mean,
he's been wrong for like ever.
Since the day he proposed that we're gonna have a catastrophe. And in terms of resources, like people say Earth is gonna run out of resources if there's like X billion number of people on the planet, but I think technological progress progresses faster than population is rising, so we can just use resources much more efficiently right now than ever before. And despite the planet having the number of people by far more than ever before, I think also the standard of living of an average person in the world is at its peak. You could say like in some things we have better standard of living than like royalty back in the day, like food and medicine and whatever, and entertainment. Like right now you got in your phone all the entertainment you could ever need for like centuries.
Oh, you're telling me.
There's a wheat surplus this year in the States. Did you know that?
No.
It's a huge crisis with farmers because the prices of wheat are dropping because there's a surplus of it. No, because there's a scarcity. It's fascinating.
That's why groceries are so cheap.
Yeah, exactly. Not in Canada. There are issues. But
so in terms of like running out of resources, I don't know, like water, what resources? I mean, energy, you could say that with, again, progress in renewables like solar and wind, the planet, and hopefully nuclear, the planet is going to have enough energy to sustain tens of billions of people in maybe a few decades from now. And it also, like, it's not going to be instantaneous. Like, you cure aging today and the planet's not going to like explode in population, because actually people right now, they're just, if they just stop dying right now, we'd reach like 12 billion people only by 2050. If like people stop dying and we keep the birth rates keep steady right now, but of course the birth rates are actually falling. So I think like the world is going to be fine figuring out all the resources it needs to sustain the level of population in the world, even with people not dying.
Do you talk to a lot of people who have like an innate dystopian reaction to longevity? Because I think that with AI as well, people have like, there's so much like sci-fi and cultural lore of the future being scary, that everyone has this like this default state of, oh, the progress is scary, future is scary, AI is scary, all these new technologies are inherently scary, because we've been kind of trained to believe through movies our whole lives that it will be scary, the future is going to be worse than it. Like if you look up, you know, if you go to like DALL-E and look up, show me an image of the world in like 2040, it's always like some cyberpunk or like nukes going off, because that's the lore we have, that's the narratives we build
like
about the future.
Carbon, as you mentioned.
Yeah, do you find people are like kind of apprehensive immediately when you bring this up?
Yeah, I see a lot of that when I talk to people about it. And you're right, a lot of this is just coming from like culture, like whether it's even like, I don't know, like Harry Potter, right? Like the Lord Voldemort is like literally a guy who's trying to flee from death, like that's his name, and he's trying to reach immortality. And then like other Hollywood movies, like whatever, like the Avatar one where they're like killing whales or something to live forever. Brain juice or something, I don't know, whatever. It's just like, and I don't know, I'm not sure exactly why that is. Like there's this like reaction to it. I think maybe it's just like because the future is unknown, so people are usually just like scared of the future, and that's kind of like the narrative that they write. But another thing is it could be just practical, right? Like in Hollywood stories you need conflict, right? So if everything's like perfect in the future, it's just like, well, how do I make a story out of that, right? Like you need some sort of like villain, and the villain needs to be after something like really important, otherwise it wouldn't make sense for them to like, you know, come up with these crazy schemes and stuff. And the only things that are, you know, really, I guess, like valuable are like money or love interest, or maybe like, you know, living forever or something like that. So
it is the bad guy of a lot of stories, the dude trying to live forever. Which actually reinforces the fact that it's a valuable thing, right? Like that it's not a bad thing, because this guy wants it really badly. Like he's willing to kill a bunch of people to do it. You ever think you're the bad guys? Okay, there's this concept.
How did you know?
There's this concept called hyperstition, which is basically like we create futures by envisioning them. And so the idea is like those pessimistic futures of reality actually function as a creation for reality. And I'm wondering what your thoughts on that are. Like, do you think that you can bring about a better future by envisioning and being optimistic about a better future? Or is that completely unrelated?
I think it's actually a requirement. You have to first kind of sell the dream to the general public for them to actually want to reach that dream. And like going to the moon, first you got to like convince them that this is worth doing, or curing aging or curing cancer. I think before, like, people are like, oh, okay, well, this sounds good, let's do it. And because everything then trickles down, like it's the governments that have to make these decisions and fund them, and like only then will scientists start working on them. Like for AIDS, for example, until there was enough, you know, ground support for looking into new therapies for AIDS, for HIV, you know, people with AIDS only lived like, you know, a few years. And then after their movement galvanized, like the politicians and the government started spending billions of dollars on research into how do we, you know, at least slow down this immunodeficiency. Only then we developed, you know, the world developed those therapies that right now allow people with HIV to live essentially, you know, for about as long as people without HIV live.
Maybe because we see it as antithetical to being human. We were talking with this on the walk here of like destroying humanity in an abstract sense, like what humanity is, right? We see ourselves, and we've always seen ourselves as sort of this like center of the universe, supreme being, inherently special compared to every other animal. We have like this spark that other animals don't have, and we frame all of our suffering in this narrative of it all be like going somewhere, right? And then once you start to pick away at that, when you start to be like, oh, well, actually, like, your brain is really hackable, and there's all these subconscious things going on that you don't understand, and there's all these things going inside your body that you don't understand, and you can just change all this. Like, your personality is malleable, your health is malleable, your longevity is malleable, everything's malleable. It's sort of like, it goes against everything we thought for the entirety of history, right? Up until now. So I feel like that's why, maybe the reason people have such a bad reaction against it as well. It does just feel icky. Like, it just feels icky compared to what popular thought has been for all of human history.
Yes, your looks being malleable is the black pill, because you can change your facial appearance to be more attractive. That's malleable now in a way where it wasn't before. And we do live in a time where, like, if you view this as a problem to solve, well, we're uniquely positioned now to actually solve it, right, in all of human history. What do you think, Mary, Mother of God?
I think you should die.
Okay, all right. So I'm curious about vitalism. What is the tenets of that?
Yeah.
I'll die.
Yeah, well, the fundamental moral principle is just very simple. It's just that life is good, death is bad. And because aging is the thing that, causes the most death today, we should be doing something about it, and not just like some small, effort. This should be humanity's like number one priority, right? This is what we should be tackling, like, as a civilizational like effort or struggle against death and aging.
Okay.
So that's the main idea, essentially.
It sounds good. What's the praxis for that? Are you going to buy an island and make an immortalist tech state?
So,
Yeah.
how did you know? No. Yeah, well, the sort of like master plan, if you will, is basically the first thing that you need to do is come up with like just like the namespace, right? Like, to give it a name, because prior to vitalism, there wasn't really a good way to like identify the people who believe this moral sort of foundation, right? Because like longevity, you could say, I'm into longevity, but that means so many different things. Some people are like, yeah, it means I do cold plunges and I drink kale smoothies. But then other people are just like, no, we're in like this like struggle against death, and that's what longevity means to me. So yeah, we wanted to come up with a word, right? And I know it has an older meaning, but like this was like the best term that we could come up with, and it kind of like stuck as a name. But basically, yeah, we wanted a term, like a way for people to self-identify, and then this allows people to basically connect and unify their efforts, right? Align towards like a common goal. So that's like step one, just like even finding who are the people who believe this, right? Who really like believe this to their core. Like, this is the most important thing in their life to be working on. And we think there's at least millions of people around the world just like randomly scattered about different countries in the world who believe this. And the problem is we're just like so diffuse, right? So scattered out that we haven't been able to basically, come together to, I guess, bring together our vision in a sort of like a political way, and get like this like idea, out in front in society, because there's just, it's just too low density right now. So yeah, coming up with a name to unify people, and then the question is, okay, once you have a bunch of people who believe the same thing and are aligned, then you have this kind of like ecosystem where people can like build organizations that push this idea forward, or they can build companies that are working on the biotech side, and they can help each other. So kind of like an ecosystem of sorts. But then the main push will be to like, to be able to get to state level influence, like political influence, because at the moment, like, nobody cares about this. This is not like on any government's radar, except for a few in the world, like maybe Saudi Arabia and stuff like that. So
Biden should care. I think Biden and Trump should really care about it. They're fucking circling the drain right now.
Yeah, everyone should be caring about this, but it's just like there's just so much like, I don't know, like what a psychological cope or whatever that's like pushing against it. So yeah, you need to really, bring together the hardcore people to like push forward essentially a revolution of sorts, like an ideological revolution. And there's different ways that could happen. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with like Balaji Srinivasan's like network state ideas, but people find each other in the cloud, through the power of the internet. They form like internet communities around different ideas, and one of these could be vitalism or longevity, fighting aging. And once they're sort of like connected in the cloud, then they can sort of like align, and then try and, I guess, manifest in physical space. So one way that you could do that is you could like, crowdfund land that could be like, like co-living spaces around the world, and then like as like a network, like decentralized sort of like state. Or you could do something like the Free State Project in the United States. I don't know if you guys know that, but yeah, basically it's like a libertarian sort of project where like 15 years ago, a bunch of libertarians basically decided that they would choose one state in the US and try to all migrate there, right? And move there. And then they would have like political influence in that state. So they chose New Hampshire, and like thousands, maybe tens of thousands of people have moved there, and now they occupy like a non-insignificant fraction of the seats in the House of in the government there, House of Representatives.
Yeah, their license plate says "Live free or die."
Yes, exactly. So you could do something like that as well. So there's different strategies, right, to basically concentrate people who rally under this banner and then achieve political influence, which would allow you to unlock certain things that only states have the power to do, which is like allocation of research funding, or like incentives for longevity companies, or like policies, urban policies, social policies to like basically create like blue zones of the future, right, in your communities, so people can live longer in the here and now as well. But then also like regulation, right? So like developing new therapies is it's a highly regulated industry, and we could be moving a lot faster, just like Operation Warp Speed basically got COVID vaccines in like a year and a half, right? We could, if society cared about it,
right? If there was the political will, for sure. Well, it's very like grounded to actually want to engage with politics in that way and see in which ways you can influence the state. But you're not in New Hampshire, so what's your plan?
Well, yeah. So I would have to move.
Occupy Toronto. Yeah.
Well, yeah. So
that's what we're trying to do as well. Occupy Toronto.
Yeah. Ideally, people would, come to some sort of consensus online first, right? To like figure out which states could be prioritized to, elevate them to become more longevity centric, let's say. But yeah, if one was chosen in the United States and a bunch of like vitalists said, hey, this is probably like we have a good shot of making like an impact here in this particular state, maybe it's like, I don't know, Montana or Wyoming or some other state with a small population, let's say, then yeah, I would move there. I'd totally move there. I mean, people move all the time for like less important things like a job or something like that. This is like my life. Like I'm fighting for my life.
I think that this is cool because it folds into this kind of this new ideology I see forming a little bit of this sort of like post-left, post-right. Like, let's focus on the things that actually matter and get there as fast as possible. Because you see that a lot on the tech sphere, like the effective accelerationists. This anti-regulation, and it's nice that there's actually, because so many political people, or like especially young political people now, don't have any actionables. They don't have any things they actually want to do. Especially on the right, they're usually just like anti-woke. Like their whole concept of politics is just being like anti-woke, right? But it's nice to have like, here's what we want to do, here's why we want to do it, here's how we're going to do it. Like actually have paths forward is really important. But I see this forming. I see like a huge through line between these new spheres of political and societal thought that have popped up in the last 5 years.
Yeah, in my time on the internet politics world, it seems like libertarianism kind of meshes best with vitalism, because then you're basically getting the government out of the way in some sense to accelerate tech so that you can live forever. It seems like there's a connection between libertarianism and transhumanism.
Yeah, I mean, in some sense, like the overlap is maybe because of like this idea of autonomy, right? Like it's just like, I want to have the choice, and aging gives you no choice. You just like decline and then you die, and then that's it. So yeah, I think that's potentially one reason. And I think that's also why like there's a lot of crypto people interested in longevity as well, like crypto, libertarianism, longevity. Like there's a lot of overlap between those three, like circles in the Venn diagram.
Yeah, and I think some people in longevity are unhappy with the strict regulations of like the FDA and other agencies, and that's why because they think they're like an impediment to developing new therapies because they make things so much more expensive. And they think that if you're willing to tolerate the risk of trying some experimental therapies, you should be able to do this. And then they go offshore to like other countries where there's less strict regulations, and they try these new therapies. And I think Brian Johnson is a prime example. He tried some like follistatin therapy and Prospera, and he was pretty public about it. Basically, it's a gene therapy that makes your muscles grow, and it has some other longevity benefits. So he was, I think he'll report on whether he found it beneficial or not, that kind of therapy. But yeah,
that guy's got way too much muscle mass for his diet. I've seen what he eats. He shouldn't be that jacked.
He's vegan, yeah.
Yeah. It's like 1,600 calories, or like 1,400 calories a day, 1,600?
No, I think he's at 1,977, because that's his birth year. So basically $2,000 calorie. 2,000.
You know his birth year? Are you like a Brian Johnson fanboy?
Yeah. Secret my crush. But yeah, people were like, well, he had a very like precise number of calories he eats, and people are like, why 1977? Like, it's just my birth year. But basically it's a 2,000 calorie diet, so a little below like a standard male needs, like 2,500, I would say.
But he was previously on TRT as well, so I think no longer. That's what he said.
Wow, I didn't know that.
But when he was
maybe
on,
you're his fanboy.
Whatever. I must confess. Yeah. No. Yeah. He said something about like he was doing calorie restriction, right? Which is an intervention that extends lifespan in model organisms, and whether it works in humans or not, we don't know. But because he was at like a calorie deficit, he said that's why he was on TRT, to make up for that.
I think if you fast rats, they live 30% longer. I also do fasting. I fasted 9 days. That was my longest, or like a week. I do think that fasting is connected to living longer. And a caloric restriction, at least in like other animals. So it seems like it would track.
Definitely in rodents, mice and rats. They had the biggest benefits. Like to date, that's the most effective. Unfortunately, the most effective intervention in these animals is just caloric restriction, which is sad, because there's been people have been trying all sorts of different therapies and drugs, and nothing works better than just caloric restriction. And this is a lot of people are sometimes becoming disillusioned with the longevity movement because it's moving so slowly. They're like, we've established in like the 1950s that caloric restriction, if not 1930s, greatly increases lifespan in rodents, and we still haven't found a way to do this and replicate this by some sort of drug.
Stop eating. Stop eating. You'll live forever unless you stop eating for too long.
In humans or in primates, it's not as spectacular, because they actually, inspired by these findings in mice and rats, they did 2 big studies in like the 80s in monkeys, in macaques. Basically they were restricting their caloric intake to see if that will extend their lifespan, and unfortunately it was very little. There's like
interesting, because I know about the blue zones. We talked about that, I think. But in the blue zones, they always have about like caloric restriction. They never overeat. That's some of the things that I've read.
But all the autophagy research is pretty new, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Autophagy was like 2006 Nobel Prize or something.
Oh, it was that old? I thought it was like 2019 or something. That was way later.
Oh, maybe it is. Yeah, I think the concept of autophagy, which is like your body eats the bad cells, and
No, the Nobel Prize for autophagy. Yeah, I forgot the Japanese scientist who got it. That was in the early 2000s. And some people connect that to caloric restriction. They think that's the way it works, because somehow, when you're starving or you have a deficit, then the cells start, eating up all the bad stuff. And basically it's autophagy somehow magically prioritizes clearing the bad stuff. And that's why you're living longer, because, somehow that makes you healthier. But that's really not the way, it works. Like the life extension observed in rodents and mostly in rodents, that was connected to other targets in this essentially the nutrient sensing cycle, and not really the autophagy.
Politically, who are the greatest enemies to vitalism?
I don't know if I should say this on camera. The Illuminati.
Yeah, good save.
Yeah. They're always scheming.
Reptiloids.
Yeah.
Who do we have to put up against a wall to live forever?
So the thing is, I don't really sense that there's that much like organized pushback to this. I think a lot of the pushback is just like knee-jerk reaction because they've never heard of it. They think, these therapies haven't been created yet. So they're thinking about this like, amorphous future it's all abstract in their mind. So they're like come up with all these ideas. Oh, maybe aging is good because it's natural, blah, 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 overpopulation. But when people are actually faced with like death in the here and now, they like their survival instincts kick in. And like if people who are diagnosed with like terminal cancer or whatever, people will go through all sorts of lengths to try and extend their life when faced with death, right? So I actually don't think there's that much like there would be like an identifiable group that's like, no, we actually really want people to die. I mean, there's like fringe people who here and there are like in the abstract philosophically think about
Elon
it
Musk.
that way. But I don't think there's people who would just like would actually, I don't know, find other people band together and push against it, right?
Yeah,
because they probably just don't care enough about it. And at the end of the day, it's not, nobody's forcing other people to live longer or healthier. It's always going to be a choice. So they would have to hate it so much that they would want like all other people not to be able to live longer and healthier. And I just don't know who those people are.
I would force them to live forever. Yeah. If you had to live forever, you can't die. You can't choose to die, or you die a normal, natural death. What would you pick? You have to pick one. I force you to, like, if you want to live forever,
It's just such
you gotta go until the heat death of the universe.
Like,
You gotta be floating in space.
if your mother is here right now and there's a bomb strapped to her and you had to, I don't know, kill Kennedy, so it's just a silly scenario. Because
I'd be floating in space.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's like this. Ideally, this will never be like a situation that you'd have to choose between the two.
Not until I get into
Right?
government.
Like, and the question is like, even forever, like how would you guarantee that you'd know that you would be like forever existing and in what state? Like you just can't predict the future, and that I don't know, that you would also not have the choice to be able to end your existence if you had. Anyways, it just
although
seems so-
that's the concept of like Christian heaven.
yeah, that is
Right,
kind of
yeah.
ironic that Christianity,
Existing
heaven
forever, and they're like, what if I get bored of heaven? They're like, no,
Yeah, you can't
thou
opt out of
shall
heaven.
not.
Yeah, and there's billions of people who believe in that, and they're like, yeah, I'm totally cool.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
but they get the caveat that it's like,
Like,
a perfect paradise.
Basically,
right?
yeah, like having something forced upon you is bad, whether it's forced death at some point or forced immortality. Like, because like what if you get, I don't know, put in prison and for the rest of your life and you're living forever? It's like you're forced to live forever, basically. And Black Mirror, the show, has explored some of these scenarios, because that, obviously, like if you're just existing in some sort of permanent torture, obviously,
Yeah.
like, it's, dying would be, much better.
Which does bring up, like, do you think that there's any credence to the idea that you could like upload your consciousness to a USB and live on a computer? Because you guys are like, you want to live in your physical bodies, I assume, right?
Not necessarily.
You're down to get plugged in?
Yeah,
I could
yeah.
upload you to the cloud?
Again, like well, there's nothing that prevents your consciousness or personality to be implemented in some other substrate than this kind of the wet computer that our brain is. So and if we could, like, theoretically we could replicate all of the patterns of whatever our brain does in the computer, then we could first of all simulate existing personalities. But even before we are able to do that, like, we could probably connect ourselves with the computer and start slowly merging,
Right.
and at some point, like, we'll have a combined personality of what's inside the brain and what's outside in a computer.
I'm putting you guys on.
I'm a bio-biased.
Yeah, you're bio-biased. Yeah, you're not gonna. I can't put you on a USB.
Well, I mean, like if you had the choice between like not existing forever and being a USB, then yeah, maybe I'd go for the USB. But I think the conservative approach is to like, we know all of this stuff works. Like, if you transfer your consciousness into some other substrate, do we really know it's going to be the same? I just kind of, I don't know, I like being, organic, 100% organic.
You like being organic, because I'm down to robotify. I'm down to be, for example, right now I gotta pee. This is very inconvenient. I'm gonna go, but I would rather not. I'd rather just be a robot.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I mean, obviously you can have the brain like a RoboCop, right? Put into some cyborg body, and then you don't have to pee, but you got to keep your bio brain. But I think, like long term, as long as there's some sort of continuity preserved, I have absolutely nothing against. And actually, it's preferable to have some more durable, vessel of my personality than this meat machine.
Okay, you're going on the USB stick, and then I'm gonna loop you forever, so you have to live forever.
Well, that's the problem though, with all these upload scenarios, that there's some sort of bad actor might get hold of your brain.
We'll upload you to the cloud, and not the good cloud. Microsoft Azure,
Microsoft Teams. Yeah, that's the worst torture you can come up with.
Okay.
All right.
So what do we do now? We just like.
I always wonder what the I really, less so now, but I was like super into powerlifting and like fucking slamming protein and like 3,000 calories a day, like crazy. And I noticed like when you really restrict calories, it as a man, it really fucks with your sexual reproduction and your sex organs and like your testosterone. But then testosterone is like antithetical to longevity. Like the more testosterone you have, the faster you age. Is that true?
Not strictly speaking. I mean, there's definitely like some side effects to overusing. Well, steroids mostly. But of course there's sexual dimorphism in that men live shorter than women do. But whether basically using steroids or some sort of other testosterone inducing therapies shortens your life, I don't think there's like evidence of that. There's some evidence that might increase cancer risk, but like maybe because there's also, it induces muscle growth and cellular proliferation and all that, but like there's not necessarily. And of course TRT, testosterone replacement therapy, is a like anti-aging intervention. It at the very least it makes you healthier and like more vital, more like,
I think the deeper question is like, what is the body type or muscle mass or whatever you want to call it that is like optimized for longevity? And I think we just don't know, right? So like some people who are really into longevity, they like calorically restrict themselves, they look really gaunt, skinny, right? Like, is that the best? Like, we don't know. But then there's other people like Peter Attia, who's like a well-known like longevity focused like physician, and he has a podcast and so forth, and he seems to like advocate, no, you gotta like get as much muscle as possible because your muscle declines, and then when you have low muscle when you're older, you're more frail, and then that leads to like other possibilities, like you fall and you break your hip or whatever, and then basically you're on a downwards trajectory to like a much shortened lifespan. So it's hard because like the difference is like all the interventions that are done in mice, they're done in laboratory mice. Like it's a very contained environment, but humans are out in the wild, right? Like in this world. So maybe you don't I don't have a strong opinion on this either way, actually. So I don't really know what the truth is or what is optimal. But there's just like different opinions on that.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think there is some data that like really people who used a lot of steroids, like bodybuilders, professional bodybuilders, they do have some sort of a shortened lifespan or increased mortality.
Cardiovascular issues.
But yeah, whether that's just because they've pushed their bodies too far, and not necessarily like the testosterone itself. And if you're doing it in a optimal way, healthy way, then as I said, TRT is actually prescribed for usually older people, and so yeah, I think you shouldn't be like too scared of testosterone.
I think the veganism thing makes sense. I tried a very extreme diet, and I think eating meat makes you bigger, but I think just eating vegan makes you live longer. When I was in the bathroom, I changed my mind about my entire political perspective. I think I'm on board now.
As you were peeing, as your waste was exiting your body, you're like, oh, this sucks.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Excellent.
You get a sticker.
How long do you want to live?
I want to be not useless. I'm okay with becoming like a useless breather in like my mid-90s. But I want to be like, I want to be thinking, I want to be like 89, like talking to my grandkids, going for walks, thinking clearly. If I get that, I'll be happy. That's like icing on the cake. My grandfather's like that. My grandfather's 90. He's still like sharp. So sharp.
You haven't answered the question.
How long do I want to live? Oh my god. I'm trying to think of things I want to
case.
Things I would want to see.
Okay, yeah. Assuming in like perfect mental health and perfect physical health, and not just for your age. I mean like youthful.
I need
mental capacity and physical capacity.
I've grown accustomed to the concept of dying at like 80. So thinking about it, I would need a point in the future that I would want to see. Like I would need like what's going to happen in like 2110. Something that's going to like happen in the future that I want to like witness happen. I do just like the future.
Go to Mars.
Yeah.
Huh?
I do just like the future. I guess, I do want to live. I'd rather live longer. I like the future. I like the idea of like I'm optimistic, like optimistic accelerationist. I just want to see things happen. I like the spectacle. 150.
So then once you turn 150, we're going to come to your house and kill you. You're okay with that?
I'm okay with that. Yeah, I think 150. Okay,
no matter what the world is like.
I was going to say this when you're talking about your existential crisis, because I went through a similar thing at like 21. I had like a huge 21, 22, huge crisis to the point where I had like unending anxiety for like 6 months. It was horrible. And I was doing all this research into death anxiety, because that's what it was. It was like I would like just go to bed and think about death, and I couldn't sleep. It's all I would think about. And looking at the death anxiety, and when it peaks at certain ages, it peaks at like 22, because that's the that's the inflection point of.
That's what you had.
That's exactly what I had.
Potential.
Didn't grow out of it.
It's the inflection point of like potential, and you also have like status in the world. Like you're not a teenager, you're not a kid. Like you have potential and you have power, and your potential drops as you get older because you just start picking things that you're doing. But like you're kind of like you're just in superposition at that age, and that's when you're most scared of death. But then it goes down your whole life. And I even saw a study with people in retirement homes. They did like 70s, 80s, and 90s. And talked about like death anxiety, and then it dropped. Then people in their 90s had the least death anxiety compared to people in their 80s or 70s. And the ones who had death anxiety in their 90s were people who had big regrets in life. They were like usually like people who had like committed crimes, like horrible crimes, and done bad things. But the people who just lived morally just lives were like, yeah, I'm ready to die. They weren't scared of it. So I think 150. I think by 150. I'll be adjusted enough to the idea of dying that you could kill me, and I'd just be like, okay.
Okay, I guess we're gonna hold you to your word.
You can't back out of it.
But like, what if you're like at 150 the same health as you right now, like same everything? You're like, like you're 150 right now, and tomorrow's like Nathan's coming to kill you. And you're like,
honestly,
Nathan, wait, like, you know what? Like, can you
honestly, I think sometimes the question is a loaded question, because even when people ask me, they're like, well, what's your answer? And I say, well, I actually don't give a number either. And I don't say forever. I just say indefinitely. I just want to be able to make that choice every day, like that I want to live tomorrow. And if I want to live tomorrow, then I want that choice, right? Like I just don't want that choice to be taken away from me at any point. And
it's a good way to phrase it.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's how I would put it.
Yeah, everything was about having the choice, not having something imposed on
We
you.
are pro-life and pro-choice.
Oh wow, that's a
Don't
good
quote me
tagline.
on that. Is this going on the internet?
It is indeed.
Oh, damn.
Pro-life and pro-choice.
Gonna haunt you in the
Well, I said both.
upload.
That means like they'll all love me, right?
Did we kill God and now we're reassembling his corpse, so that we can all merge into a singular entity at the end of time?
Singular
Nietzsche would say.
superconsciousness.
Where's it all going? Is that the end point? Do you believe in the singularity?
I guess Ray Kurzweil's singularity. Yeah, that's his forecast.
Is there anything recognizably human in that singularity?
We can't really know what the future is going to hold or look like. But if, I guess, we've conquered aging, we're like forever young, maybe even we're merged with machines and a lot of our interaction happens in some sort of like virtual world. Of course, our innate desires and instincts, I think, will still remain human. And of course, our memory of our, where we came from will also remain and will hold this kind of identity. Like right now, people have this identity tied to some sort of like country or ideology, and they fight very strongly protecting that. But eventually, I think people might just have the identity of like, we're humans, we come from this long like succession of apes, and finally we're able to rise above all of that. But still, they'll feel somehow sentimentally attached to where they came from. But hopefully their ability to conduct themselves and make choices based on rationality will prevail once they've outgrown the limitations imposed by both biology of aging and biology of the limited intelligence that we have right now. And by merging with machines, one of the reasons people want to do this right now is to become smarter and become more intelligent and make hopefully more intelligent decisions. So
Yeah. I think the whole idea of the singularity is the whole concept is that you can't predict what will happen after it. It's
right.
like an event horizon of some sort into the future, because progress will be just like so mind-blowingly fast that we cannot understand it, right? And this idea of like appealing to something that we don't understand as like a higher power or something that knows more and is infinitely more wise than us is in some sense kind of like the concept of the biblical God, right?
Religious.
And yeah.
This is our talk on the way here. I was talking about how God's in the future, and then you pray for God. You pray to be guided towards God, and we've always been praying to like be guided towards God in the future. Like God exists at a point in the future, but even at the inception of religion, like if you look at like fertility cults, you can go back as far as you want to when we first have the idea of a God. It's always been that God. Even 5,000 years ago, that God was always the God that's going to be in the future. The thing we don't understand that surpasses all of us, that has like a complete omnipresent understanding of reality. But we're creating it. We've always been creating it.
I think you're misinterpreting biblical text, and it's blasphemous. Shh. Talking about longevity.
We were there. We thought about that for the most of history, except for this one dark. I don't know. It's weird. We define Christianity by like the Dark Ages. It's like what we picked this one period of like 300 BC to like the Renaissance, and you're like, oh, this is what Christianity looks like. This is like the history of Christianity. But it's like, it wasn't that. It was just, there's this point when there's like this pagan Christian continuity that had this kind of like oneness understanding of God and this oneness understanding of nature. And then the state starts controlling Christianity. And there's this like this lockstep between the church and the state to control the population. And that's where like all of our understanding of Christianity comes from now, is like the Dark Ages. But that's not what Christianity is at all. The whole idea of like blasphemy or like iconoclasm like makes no sense. It's just part of this one period of Christianity.
I want to be a baby. Can I be a baby?
you can have a baby avatar in the future you can have as many, physical avatars as you want.
Oh, I'm so down. As long as I can be a baby.
You can wake up and be a baby, then go back to Greg at 5 p.m.
Yes. I want to be a baby.
Your 9 to 5 is being someone's baby. In the metaverse.
In the metaverse?
Yeah, you're just someone's baby from 9 to 5.
I would kill for this, for longevity. I would
All of you. like,
Everyone in this room.
that'll make a great podcast. Yeah.
I do think a lot that it would be most fitting for someone to start targeting people trying to live forever, because those are the guys who are trying to, it would be ironic.
You're like trying to get people to follow this advice.
No.
Or like looking
Although
at
you
the
were
camera.
saying that there's no organized movement of people who are like pro-death, and there's a real need, I think, for someone to start a death cult of some kind.
There's plenty of death cults.
Yeah, there's a lot of death cults, but they're not like trying to get everyone. Well, maybe.
Have you heard of the voluntary human extinction movement?
No. Okay.
It's kind of like the exact inverse of what you guys are talking about, which is that we should all just die out, but voluntarily.
Voluntarily.
Yes.
Well, if it's voluntarily, then people can choose to do what they want, I guess.
Let them die out. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't see how that movement can perpetuate for very long.
It's kind of self-limiting.
Yeah. But no.
There's a spectrum of, you have like pro-choice, pro-life, but then if you go like further into pro-choice, you have like antinatalism, and then you have voluntary human extinction movement, and then you have Vitalism, which is life backwards, which is just that everything and everyone should die out non-voluntarily.
Did you just make that up?
No, that's a small group of
What do you mean non-voluntarily?
Bracca.
Oh, you kill everybody.
Yeah, just everything should die.
Yeah.
And our goal should be the inverse of what you guys are talking about, which is like non-voluntary extinction.
Just blow the earth up.
I mean, yeah, there's people like that, but they're like crazy usually, and there are a few usually. I don't know. They're like
3 steps: amass political power, become president, get nuclear codes. Beep 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 beep.
And they might kill humans, but like other life forms will remain.
Tardigrades will live forever.
Yeah.
Tardigrades and cockroaches.
Yeah, the tardigrades will probably make it.
Yeah.
Do you know much about the effective accelerationists?
a little bit.
This is a group. I feel like this.
Yeah,
Twitter.
you guys are aligned pretty well.
Yeah.
I'd say.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely a little overlap. But
Yeah.
There could totally be this third, the third way, the third wing of just all these groups, all these pro future technologist groups that want to because the effective accelerations talk about that a lot too. Like you're talking about getting this land or getting like a state or like an area where everyone agrees on the same thing.
Network state. Yeah.
Network state. That's also like really common in that sphere as well. I want to see them all meet. I want to see all you guys connect, because that's the true power. You get the tech power, you get the longevity power, you get the influencers, you get everything. You build this whole realm of thought.
I think the future has a lot of that kind of mobilizing of different ideologies into different locations, and everyone believes different things.
It's already happening. Yeah, there is these kind of network states like crypto / longevity / I don't know, effective. Well, it used to be effective altruism. I guess it got rebranded. Some bad rep from Sam. But
Another effective accelerationist.
Yeah, but like there was this pop-up city in Montenegro called Zuzalo that was built by Vitalik Buterin. And then recently there was a city in Honduras, island of Roatan. It's called Vitalia. It's also dedicated to
Vitalia.
Longevity. Yeah,
That's really cool.
Is that
yeah,
Similar name, not legally affiliated in any sort of way, but we're friends, obviously, with the founders, and they're also vitalists. So yeah.
Nova Scotia, where I'm from, just dying to be led. We're lost people. I've been trying to rebuild. I've been trying to plan my my action on how to take over Nova Scotia for a while, so we can all come together on this. Nova Scotia could be a good network state. I think Nova Scotia would be the best network state in Canada.
Okay, let's do it.
Yeah. Peninsula, water on all sides. There's like a 50-kilometer border that connects to the mainland. Just cut that off. crisp lakes, crisp drinkable lakes, beautiful weather. Never goes below -10, never gets above 30. No natural disasters. It's amazing.
I think we should gather all the immortalists into one location, and then I'm president, and I go nuke you.
Just like chaos.
I'm pro chaos. But yeah, I think if the way that things are going, I think there's a case to be made that we're going to become something that's not human anymore.
Well, I don't know if we'll get to do that, but like eventually that's where
define human,
humanity is
right?
going.
I mean, humans, like even like culturally, societally, like we've been changing for like thousands of years, right? Mm-hmm. Like even if the DNA has been the same or the substrate. So I don't know. If you want to be an old person, you know, shaking your fist at the cloud and be like, I'm afraid of change, then people can go ahead.
I will literally be shaking my fist at the cloud that you're uploaded to.
Yeah.
Do you think there's anyone alive right now who's has potentially like get into the 120s, 130s? I know that's difficult to say, but
yeah, like,
you think we're there already, at least kind of like getting an extra 10, 20 years out of our lifespans?
Well, people already, in terms of world record lifespan, there's already been people into the 120s, right? So just allegedly.
You guys think you'll probably live to?
Well, we definitely hope. I don't know if we'll
talk about this philosophy.
We think, yeah, like it's hard to like commit. Like, I guarantee I'm gonna live forever, but we're definitely working towards it, and we're hoping that, and if we succeed, and if we don't get hit by a bus, there's a very good chance that those therapies will allow us to live much longer. But as it stands right now, unfortunately, we're not there yet, but we're working hard, and like the field is working hard on trying to make it happen.
Yeah, and one thing is like there's this misconception that you have to solve all of aging today to allow people who are alive today to live indefinitely, and that's not necessarily the case, right? Like you could develop an intervention or a therapy that extends lifespan by 5 or 10 years, and that would give you 5 or 10 more extra years for humanity to with their collective ingenuity to develop the technologies for the next set of interventions. And that extra 5 or 10 years is not like 5-10 years now, it's like 5 or 10 years at the end of your lifespan, like when you're 80. So like who knows what the rate of progress will be at that point.
Let's at least get let's get cancer solved. Let's at least solve cancer. That's a good place to start.
What's the plan for that? Like if you go on National Cancer Institute and you search like plan or roadmap for solving cancer, I don't think there's like really a well-known
we'll solve cancer when we can sell you a pill that you have to take every day for the rest of your life and keep paying for a prescription for. That's when we'll solve cancer. It's not going to be
well, that's a longevity therapy you're talking about, because I mean cancer is really an age-related disease, so if we have longevity therapy that can keep you young, that'll prevent cancer.
That's another thing that people don't really recognize. They know that as you get older, you're more likely to get like these diseases and stuff like that, but it's actually exponential. Like the older you get, you basically, your risk is like doubling every some odd number of years, and it just like keeps going up on this curve. And your mortality rate also, mortality risk basically goes up exponentially every 8 years once you get past like your 20s or so. Yeah,
but the war on cancer did produce like a lot of good results, like especially like pediatric cancers. There's a recent study right now that survival increased from like 10% to 90% in kids with all sorts of cancers, and even with adults, like many cancers improved significantly in terms of the survival and efficacy of the therapies over the past 3-4 decades that I think Nixon declared, right, the war on cancer. So
it's a good war to fight.
We are at war with death. I'm going to shoot death in the back of the head.
War on aging.
If it was cool to declare war on cancer, and people don't like Alzheimer's disease and they don't like heart disease, then it should make sense that we should like declare war on aging and on death, right? Like I think that's been like the OG like mission of humanity. Like the oldest story ever recorded is the Epic of Gilgamesh.
Yeah.
And that was basically this dude trying to like do something about death. And like this is a common theme. So this is not something new, right?
Yeah.
Like we're just like giving it a name to formalize it as like, hey, you know, now that we have the scientific method, we're in a good position to try and actually attempt to do something about this problem. And that's only, I guess, been pretty recent that.
I know Greg's got to leave in like 3 minutes. He's got a meeting, sadly. But do you want some closing statements? Sum it all up. Give the viewers some actionables.
Yeah, I'm wondering, like, maybe something you touch on is like, in terms of practical things we could do, like for our own bodies, but also politically or whatever. You know, like how can we kill death?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, in terms of our own bodies, and that's the problem, because people always start with like, what can I do right now for myself to, you know, get me to live longer? And it's, you know, the things that everybody already knows about, like don't smoke, you know, do some exercise, don't overeat, watch your diet, and all those things. Unfortunately, they won't get you to like 120, but they'll give you maybe another 10 years, healthy years of your life. But like politically, I think much more important is to create this, you know, groundswell of support for the politicians to fund looking for solutions to aging, you know, in much more than they do right now. So this is where I think, you know, movements like Vitalism come in.
Yeah. So I've interviewed hundreds of experts on longevity, scientists, people working on the technology in biotech or whatever. And my top, like from doing this, my top 5 hacks for reversing, you know, aging is 1, drop everything and work on aging. 2, drop everything and work on aging. 3, drop everything and work on aging. 4, 5, and it doesn't mean like you have to like go back to school and like become like a scientist or whatever. It just means like you need to do something, whether that's like advocating for it politically or investing in companies that are, you know, trying to bring these therapies to market, or donating to nonprofits that are doing research in the space. I think these are all like, or like if you're inclined, you know, make a career transition to, you know, make this the focus of your work, right? And the time that you have remaining. But then, yeah, more practically, like, if this, you know, if vitalism, like life is good, death is bad, let's do something about this. Like, if that resonates with people, I think they should definitely go to like vitalism.io, which is our website, and they can sign up for the email list and get involved in that community. And then if you're interested in like, working on this problem, like on the technical stuff, and then that's building companies or doing research to fight aging, then and solve this problem of aging, then people should check us out at the Longevity Biotech Fellowship, so longbiofellowship.org. Yeah.
Well, normally we end this podcast by shooting you in the head, but that doesn't really seem appropriate.
Yeah, it's not fitting at all.
You guys can just kill me. And that's the real horseshoe theory. Bang!